You want healthy, glowing skin, but with all the products, trends, and conflicting advice, it's hard to know what actually works. I understand. I am Dr. Tina Meder, a former cardiologist and specialist in the skincare development and cosmetic safety expert. I've spent years studying the science of skin. Welcome to Meder Beauty podcast, where we uncover what really matters, break down the science, and give you real expert-backed skincare advice. Whether you're looking to achieve radiant, healthy skin, curious about anti-aging, or want to understand what's really in your product, you are in the right place. Rooted in science and the truth about what your skin actually needs, we'll have in-depth conversations with leading dermatologists, medical experts, and skincare brand founders to bring you the latest innovations, evidence-based insights, and industry secrets that truly make a difference. We are so happy you are here. So let's go. Let's discuss about this controversial link between our gut and health of our skin. Why I call it controversial? Because I started my medical career as a doctor in the mid-90s. And at this time, the scientific consensus was that food doesn't affect your skin health. I remember many of my highly respected colleagues who've been just laughing on the idea that you should give some food recommendation for people suffering of acne or some dermatosis or any other disease. But in the same time, empirically, and amongst old school doctors, there's been some understanding that food affects our health. If you remember Hippocrates, he's been speaking that food can be the treatment and food can be the poison. And actually, food was used as a treatment for so many years, probably for thousands of years, by healers, by doctors, and by all kinds of medical professionals, as well as the lot of proverbial evidence of the food-based medical help in the traditional folk medicine. But in the official allopathic Western medicine, the food benefits was ignored for many years. And being a dermatologist working in the aesthetic fields, I witnessed a lot of situations when patients suffering from acne, they've been told they should not change their diet because the diet doesn't affect the skin. And they've been one of research, or few research, but actually one of them, they've been very famous. And me personally, I quoted it as well as an argument against the ideas that acne can be caused by some types of food. That's a research when two groups of people, they've got chocolate as a supplement to the food in kind of significant amount. And in one group of people, the acne and the skin health was well present, and in other group, it was not. And both of groups, they didn't react to this addition of the black chocolate to their food. And it was seen as a proof that food is not significant. But actually, in the last years, finally, we have the scientific evidence, and we've been wrong. And it is one of the rare cases when being wrong feels like a right thing, because deep in our heart, we understood that food has a significance. Then everything what we eat, it affects our health and it affects our skin. And a lot of people, especially people suffering from eczema, from psoriasis, from different kind of dermatosis, and from acne, they knew that when they eat something like spiced food or something too sweet, next day their skin condition will be worsened. And this scientific evidence and explanation of what happens with our skin after we eating something is based on the new knowledge about the microbiome. So thanks to the Human Microbiome Project, which started only in 2007, Now we understand that it is not food itself affects the skin directly. It is byproducts of microbiome living in the gut affects our skin. And actually, by the way, it affects not skin only. It affects the brain, it affects our mental health, and it affects literally all organs, all tissues and systems of our body. So how it works? The whole negativism about the food effects on the skin health was based on the understanding that when you eat something, our digestive system digest it and convert these whole food products in very small molecules, which we call macronutrients or nutrients. Macronutrients, they are proteins, they are fats, and they are carbohydrates. Many of you, dear listeners, you know what they are, what they represent. So they are protein-rich foods, they are food rich of carbohydrates, fat-rich food, and proteins, fat, carbohydrates, they can be of different quality. For example, we can get animal proteins, we can get plant-derived proteins. Proteins represent big molecules, chain of amino acids, creating different structures, and animal proteins, they are different from plant-derived proteins. So sometimes you don't get all of necessary amino acids from plant-derived proteins, and it can create some health problem. Same for fat. We can get saturated fat, we can get unsaturated fat. Some fats, as we understand it now, can provoke or trigger inflammatory changes in the gut and in other organs and tissues of our body. And some fat can be protective, can be beneficial. And carbohydrates, they can be sugars, which provoke high rise of the glucose level in our body because our pancreatic gland does not have enough time or energy and health to react properly to this high amount of sugar. Some carbohydrates, they also contain sugar, but they are released from the food slower, so we don't have this peak of glucose level, and it is much better for the body because we avoid this high level of glucose circulating in our bloodstream, and we can maintain the stable low level of glucose, which is much better for our health. So many things depends on the food we eat, but that's not only about macronutrients. There are vitamins, which name of vitamins coming from the vita, which means life essential vitamins, and many of them. That's vitamin C, ascorbic acid, that's vitamin A, retinoic acid or retinol, famous in the skincare, vitamin E, tocopherol, vitamin D, which is produced by our body but also can be helped, the food can help to produce more of it, all group of vitamin B, and so on. And we have microelements, different type of minerals, which are coming to our food from different source of natural plants and animals. But also we have neutral substances in our food, which called fibers. Fibers we cannot digest, we cannot take energy from fibers, but they are important for our gut health because they act as a cleaning and stimulating the natural movement of the bowel substances. So fibers, despite them being energy empty, they are still useful. And this understanding of this macronutrient and micronutrient been very stable until the recent time, and the whole negativism of the food intake on the skin health was based on the idea that, okay, we digest the food. All these amazing ingredients, they go to the bloodstream, and after they go to the organs or tissues or cells when they need it. So our body is able to take necessary elements for the health of each organs. And skin cannot interact with the gut directly. But since came the understanding, then our gut contains a lot of bacteria, fungi, viruses, all types of microorganisms, and our contains a lot of them. About the gut, it wasn't a surprise. We knew about it. And the gut is full of different kind of microorganisms, but the understanding of the role of these microorganisms was quite low until the 21st century. But about the skin, we didn't knew it. Even when I was in the university, we've been speaking about the skin as about, if not sterile, but more or less clean environment. So when you find some bacteria on the skin, it will be pathogenic. And for example, Cutibacterium acnes, which was called Propionibacterium acnes in this time, it was seen as a pathogenic bacteria until the probably mid of 2000s, when we understood that it is not pathogenic first, and now we see it as a very beneficial bacteria, which provide us with a lot of antioxidant protection and the hydrolysis of essential lipids from sebum lipids and helping to protect our skin. So there have been a lot of changes, but this understanding of the crosstalk between gut and the skin came much later. And this crosstalk now has a real name. It's called gut-skin axis. It is well known and scientifically described phenomenon. Also, recently we started to speak about gut-skin-brain axis because our gut, our digestive system, talk to the skin, and both of them, they are talking to the brain, affecting our mental health and affecting everything, including intellectual ability of us. So how it happens? Actually, the skin is affected by the food, but it's truthful, but that it's not affected by the food directly. It is affected by the byproduct of the food digestion created by microorganisms living in our gut. So, easily speaking, our gut bacteria and all other microorganisms, they are feeding from our table. So, everything you eat, you feed your bacteria at the same time, and actually there are a lot of them, scientifically proven. Then we have a lot of bacteria, and it takes a significant percentage of our body mass. So just for an example, the average woman who has a body weight about 60-65 kilo probably has 2.5 kilo of microorganisms, of bacteria living in the body. And big part of these bacteria are living in the gut, and they are feeding from our food. And byproducts of their digestion, they are very small molecules, and these byproducts, they easily penetrate into the bloodstream. And so they travel to different organs, skin included, and they can affect the skin health. So what happens when you eat the food which create some pro-inflammatory byproducts of bacterial digestion? These pro-inflammatory byproducts, small molecules, they travel to your skin and they create an inflammation in the skin. It depends on your heritage. So it can be more or less genetically predetermined what types of inflammation will develop in your skin. In the young age, very probably, it can be in acne. In people who have this genetic predeterminants to eczema or to the psoriasis, which are running in the family, it can be this dermatosis. It can be high skin sensitivity. It can be even some types of pseudo-allergic reaction like urticaria, the big red itchy elements which appears on the skin surface with histamine releases in the skin. So it really depends on the genetic, and it depends on the bacteria themselves. And some types of food, they are promoting the growth of the bacteria who has this pro-inflammatory byproducts. Also, what is really bad about these pro-inflammatory byproducts. They can be very damaging for the wall of the intestine. So they can damage the intestine, they can really disturb the epithelium of the gut, they can disturb the microbiome, and it creates a phenomenon which is now known as a leaky gut. And yes, it is real. Leaky gut exists. And when the gut becomes leaky, we have even higher amount of these pro-inflammatory substances traveling in our bloodstream and affecting our skin and our brain and all other organs much more significantly. So, what can we do to avoid this interaction? We can change our diet, because the growth of bacteria in our gut, it depends on the diet. If you eat food which is good for beneficial bacteria, but at the same time this inflammatory and nasty bacteria cannot eat it, it's not eatable for them, you will get all benefits of anti-inflammatory substances and of all protective substances in your skin. But vice versa, if you eat the food which promotes the growth of inflammatory bacteria and creates a leaky gut, your skin will suffer. And to be honest, being the skin practitioners and having this dozens of years of the experience of treatments of real patients and customers and the skincare lovers, I can say from the first place that it is very difficult, if it's not impossible, to treat some skin conditions such as acne or rosacea without diet intervention. Because if the microbiome of the gut will still be inflammatory, you can do nothing about it. You can improve slightly the skin condition, but you will never get real results. So let's see what is good for an acne treatment, what is good for inflammatory conditions and for the skin health. Speaking about the diet, I hope I will not bring in the bad news, but sugar and all types of sweetened food are not good. Actually, we have very interesting statistical evidence which is based on the epidemiological research that shows in some population who don't eat anything based on sugar and anything sweet and has a very specific nature of diet, acne is unknown condition. They never heard about it. But with our modern progress, Western food came to beautiful tropical islands as well, and they started to notice more and more of this unknown condition to them. And now they have the same amount of acne we have in developed countries. So what types of food you should avoid if you're suffering from acne? First of all, you should avoid sugar at any price, all types of sugar. And yes, fruits can be relatively harmful as well if eaten in huge amount, but fresh fruits are better, but still you should be reasonable with the fruits intake. But speaking about the real sugar, the sweetened drinks, the pastry, desserts, and whatever now come to your mind, it's not good. You should minimize the sugar intake, and even better to try to eliminate all sugar from your diet during the active acne treatment. Another food to avoid is red meat. Yeah, red meat in your diet provokes the growth of bacteria, which byproducts will be pro-inflammatory and will provoke the leaky gut in some cases, especially amongst people who are genetically predetermined to this condition, who are more sensitive to the byproducts of the meat digestion. Meat contains the amino called leucine. They can be pro-inflammatory, and they can also disturb the hormonal balance, triggering the higher sensitivity to androgen, male hormones in the skin, which will be pro-inflammatory as well. And another recommendation is to avoid dairy product. Unfortunately, cow's milks, fresh milk. Only exception is fermented milks like kefir or some other fermented product like cheeses. They can be better, but all types of milk-based product can be provocative for the same reasons. They contain the same amino acids as a red meat, and also they are promotional for the growth of inflammatory bacteria, creating this leaky gut. So during the acne treatment, we recommend to switch off from the Western diet based on the high amount of sugar, high amount of red meat, and high amount of dairy products. So classic diet, right? The milk and cereal in the morning, the meat and some carbohydrates and desserts during the day, sweet coffee or sweet drinks. So all of this, it can be harmful for your skin. And switch to healthy plant-based diet with low amount of meat, and better to replace it with a fish or seafood, or maybe sometimes some poultry like chicken or turkey. Mediterranean diet is proven to be anti-inflammatory. What is the Mediterranean diet? Mediterranean diet contains a lot of plants which you eat in each food intake 3 or 4 times a day. And so it can be salads, it can be fresh vegetables, it can be grilled vegetables. Also the olives, which are biofermented food containing a lot of anti-inflammatory substances, helping to promote the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut, and able also to travel by the bloodstream and to reduce the inflammation changes in your skin. Fish and seafood, fruits, but not sugar, and a lot of water. And for adult people, sometimes a glass of wine. What can be useful as well? Actually, a lot of traditional foods are good for the skin health. Traditional foods are based on the Asiatic tradition, when there are a lot of seafood, a lot of algae, rice, non-polished rice, and less of dessert, less of sweet things, can be also good for the skin health. And it's really important to understand the role of the gut and skin microbiome axis during the treatment of these types of dermatosis, like acne and rosacea and psoriasis and eczema. In rosacea, some food can trigger the rosacea. The role of the food in the rosacea development is well known, is well studied. But in rosacea, food triggers can be very individual. For example, about 50% of people, they react to spicy food. About 20% of people, they react to the crest vegetables like cabbage, broccoli, or even arugula. Some percentage of people, they react to the red meat. So if you are suffering from rosacea, it's important to get some kind of diary, just noticing everything what you eat and other life events, and noticing if you have some changes in your skin condition. It will help to diagnose, to find your individual triggers. Because this idea to avoid everything which can potentially trigger rosacea, it's not really good, because it's a lot of limitation in your daily life. We should eat healthy, we should have a diverse diet, and very probably you have only one individual triggers from 10 products known to be triggers. So it's really worth it to get a food diary for 2 or 3 months. But the role of microbiome is not limited by the skin dermatosis. Skin dermatosis is extreme conditions when the skin is really the mirror of the gut health, when you see these high inflammatory impacts on our skin. But in the same time, the change of the diet can be very beneficial, and if it is accompanied by the professional skin intervention, by the use of really good quality skincare, helping to improve the skin condition, you can really restore your skin health quickly, in a few weeks' time, 5, 8, 10, sometimes 16 or 20 weeks, and you can really enjoy your healthy skin. And it will be good even for active longevity prognosis, because the skin is the largest human organ, but this organ is interconnected with everything in our body. So if your largest organ is inflamed, unhappy, and irritated, believe me, all other organs are unhappy as well, and it really affects their skin, and it really affects our life prognosis. Food and gut microbiome affects our skin health in many aspects. It can provoke the skin dryness, or it can maintain the skin perfect hydration. It can accelerate the skin aging, or it can prevent the skin aging if it can prevent the aging of the body. And it even can act as a hormonal replacement therapy, but the safe natural version of HRT in the menopause period. And actually it is very interesting, because this research about menopause, they are quite revolutionary in the good sense of this term. Recently it was discovered that in a female gut microbiome, some community of bacteria can produce the very specific substances, the enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And this enzyme can convert estrogen in your gut. So during the menopause, ovary function is reduced, and so the synthesis of estrogen, of female hormones, is significantly reduced in our body. But the gut can become the new ovary, synthesizing and producing active form of functional estrogen, female hormones, and it's really helped to smooth and reduce these dramatic changes happening in the skin during the early menopause period, during the onset of menopause, because it is well-known fact, when estrogen level is significantly reducing, it happens in the last 12 months before the menopause is diagnosed, and in the upcoming 2, 3, maybe 5 years, sometimes women can lose up to 30% of the dermal collagen during these first few years of their life. And when you lose 30% of the collagen, it creates dramatic changes in your skin elasticity. It's really dramatic sagging of the skin and development of deep line and folds, which are quite difficult to treat. So it really leads to the age-related changes and deformation, which can be very visible. But if your gut microbiome is good enough, it creates this efficient estrobolome, converting estrogens into the active form. And yes, the level of estrogen still will be reduced. It will not be on the level of like you're 25 years old. So it's not about the fertility. But it can support the skin health, and also even better, it can support bones health. It can support the muscle strength. So it is very important. And to support your estrobolome, in the menopause time, you should follow kind of simple rules. And actually, these rules have been defined by the traditional medicine many years ago. So it was called some kind of phytoestrogen diet and something like this. But it's not about phytoestrogens themselves traveling into the bloodstream. It's about the gut bacteria converting estrogens to the active form. So no surprises here, no sugar again, and it's equally important as an sugar in the acne treatment. So we try to avoid the sugar, we try to avoid the red meat as well. But what is really good for the estrobolome health, I made the notice for me, do not forget about anything. First of all, cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are good for the estrobolome. So when you feel the upcoming of the menopause period, you should eat more broccoli, more cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, everything you want, arugula, and even mustard, also cruciferous. Also whole grain and fresh vegetables, fresh legumes. Another food to add to your menopause diet will be the fermented food, like kimchi cabbage, 2-in-1, cabbage and fermented. Also, it would be really great to eat yogurt or kefir based on the leaf bacteria every day, sauerkraut, another type of biofermented cabbage, kombucha, miso, and all types of biofermented food you can find, because it's really enhance the estrobolome function. Other type of food, they are food rich in prebiotics. What are prebiotics? Prebiotics, they are feeding substances for beneficial bacteria. And do you know what is the best prebiotic food for the menopause? Bananas. Bananas and onions. They contain the best prebiotics for the estrobolome microbiome. Also, apples can be good, and also different nuts and seeds, especially flax seeds. Flax seeds are really good for this period of life. And food containing lignan and phytoestrogens, because they're really promoting the growth of this estrobolome microbiome. So soybeans, tofu, sesame seeds, chickpeas, all types of bean, lentils, and different berries. Berries are rich of anthocyanin and different types of flavonoids, and they are promoting the estrobolome growth as well. So it helps to convert your female hormones to the active form. If you can get as much as plant diversity as you can, it would be great. So don't stop on one type of cabbage. Eat many of them. If you need 3 tips, first it will be omega-3 rich food, so fatty fish, chia seed, and walnuts and different types of nuts. They're all great for your microbiome health. Another tips, it's crustaceous vegetables and also antioxidants, berries, green tea is great for this period of life. And if you want to know more about the spicy, think about turmeric. Turmeric is really promotional for the estrobolome. And what is really important, it's not only to eat good things, but to avoid bad things as well. Forget about ultra-processed food. Forget about sugar. Try to forget about red meat as well. And remember that antibiotics can be dangerous for the estrobolome. So during the menopause, antibiotic cure can trigger the change of the skin elasticity. So if you've been prescribed antibiotics, please take probiotics, prebiotics, and be extremely attentive to everything you eat during the period of antibiotic therapy and at least 10 weeks later. And it would be great because the gut is your new ovary. What is about the fun fact about this axis, about gut microbiome and the skin microbiome? I found one thing which really surprised me. It was unexpected and it sounds controversial. The exposure to ultraviolet is good for your gut microbiome health. Yeah, I know how it sounds, but it is scientific evidence behind it, and moderate exposure to ultraviolet type B is really good for the microbiome health, for skin as well as for the gut, because it suppresses the growth of pathogenic bacteria and it promotes the synthesis and activates the synthesis of vitamin D in the skin, and it helps to get the right level of vitamin D circulating in your body as well. It is especially important for vitamin D deficient people because it was found in people who suffer from vitamin D deficiency, the gut microbiome becomes less diverse, and this deficiency of vitamin D apparently promotes the growth of pro-inflammatory bacteria. So it can provoke the leaky gut situation. It can provoke inflammatory changes in the skin as well as in other body organs, and it can be harmful for the health. So what you should take from it? Not like you should go to the sunbed and stay there all days. The word moderate is the most important here, because the excessive exposure ultraviolet is still harmful for your microbiome and for your skin health directly. But the moderate exposure to the ultraviolet in the early morning or in the after lunch evening time can be very beneficial. And it is very important to control your vitamin D level, especially if your lifestyle cannot be called outdoor lifestyle. If you speak about the number about outdoors hours you should spend in the nature during the year. And now they are publishing papers and they mention this 1,000 hours number, which you should spend outdoors during the year. And it sounds a little bit unrealistic for many people living in the big city and living this type 9 to 5 life, right? Because 1,000 hours of outdoors life, it means like 2.5, 3 hours a day spent outdoors. So my advice, try to spend as much time outdoors as you can during weekends and during holidays. Please don't stay in your hotel rooms. Don't stay home at the weekend time. Enjoy the nature, enjoy walk, enjoy physical activity. And try to spend at least half of hour or 1 hour outdoor. And also you should control your vitamin D level, especially if the lifestyle is not so active or you are living in the northern hemisphere. Because in the northern hemisphere, we don't have enough of the ultraviolet exposure during the big part of the year. I know what I am speaking about. I am the northerner myself, so I'm trying to take as much time outdoor as I can, but I control my vitamin D level. Because if your vitamin D level is low, it affects your gut microbiome health, it affects your calcium metabolism, it affects your bones health, and it affects directly your skin health. It is true for acne patients, people with dermatosis, women in menopause. So if you want to prolong active longevity of your skin, if you want to look useful, feel useful, and stay healthy and active, vitamin D, one of the key points, as well as your healthy diet, because your healthy diet is one of the key to your skin health. If you find this episode interesting, and if you liked it, or if you find it controversial, if you have any question, please leave comments to the podcast. Speak with us in the Instagram and the social networks account. You can leave your comments to the podcast in the Instagram of Meder Beauty or in my personal Instagram page, Dr. Tina Meder. You're so welcome. I'll be happy to answer your question and I'll be happy to discuss any topic. If you have the idea of another podcast episode, you're welcome too. Thank you for joining us today on the Meder Beauty podcast. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an expert skincare tip. Have a question or topic you'd like for me to cover? Send me a message at podcast@mederbeauty.com and let's keep the conversation going. Also, you can visit mederbeauty.com and discover Meder Skincare, which I created. And if you enjoyed the show, I'd love if you left a review. It helps others find the podcast and keeps us growing. Until next time, stay healthy, stay glowing, and take care of your skin.